There are moments in life when words feel too small for the weight we carry in our hearts. Moments when the nights feel longer, the answers feel farther away, and hope feels fragile. Welcome to Timeless Prayer. If you are here right now, listening to this prayer, it is not by chance. It is because your heart is searching for something more: comfort, direction, healing, or a miracle that cannot wait any longer. Maybe you are facing a situation that seems impossible, a financial burden that keeps you awake at night, a sickness that has drained your strength, a broken relationship, a lost opportunity, or a silent fear you carry alone. You may have prayed before and wondered if heaven heard you. Let me tell you this with certainty: you are not forgotten, and your prayer matters. Today, we come together with humble hearts to call upon St. Anthony, the saint of urgent causes, the friend of the afflicted, the intercessor who has helped countless souls when all hope seemed lost. St. Anthony is known across the world for his powerful intercession and his tender care for those who cry out in desperation. He understands human pain, he understands waiting, and he understands miracles. This is not just another prayer. This is a moment of surrender, a moment to place your worries, your fears, and your deepest desires into hands that are already lifted toward heaven on your behalf. As you listen, I invite you to breathe, to quiet your mind, and to open your heart completely. You do not need perfect words, you only need faith, even if it feels small right now. Believe that God is listening. Believe that St. Anthony is walking beside you in this moment. Believe that what feels broken can be restored, what feels delayed can be released, and what feels impossible can be transformed by divine grace. If your heart is longing for an urgent miracle, stay here, pray with sincerity, pray with trust. Let every word reach deep into your soul and rise to heaven as a cry filled with hope. This prayer is for you. This moment is for you. And with faith, love, and perseverance, miracles can and do happen. Let us begin, together, in faith. As we move forward into this moment of prayer, I want you to pause for just a few seconds. Let the noise of the world fade away. Let go of the rush, the expectations, and even the words you think you should be saying right now. This is not a performance. This is not about having strong faith all the time. This is about honesty. This is about showing up exactly as you are, with a heart that may feel tired, confused, or overwhelmed. You don't need to pretend that everything is fine. You don't need to hide your pain from God or from St. Anthony. They already see it. They already know what you carry. And in this sacred moment, before any miracle is asked for, before any solution is imagined, we begin by doing something deeply human and deeply holy. We acknowledge what hurts. I want to speak to you personally now, because behind every prayer is a real person with a real story. You may be smiling on the outside, functioning, showing up for others, doing what life demands of you. But inside, there is something heavy, something you don't always talk about, something that keeps returning to your thoughts when the day becomes quiet. Maybe it is a financial burden that feels impossible to escape. Bills piling up, responsibilities growing heavier, and the constant fear of not knowing how things will work out. Maybe you lie awake at night, calculating, worrying, praying silently that somehow things will change. Or maybe it is a sickness, your own or someone you love, that has shaken your sense of security and made you feel powerless. A diagnosis, ongoing pain, unanswered treatments, or the slow exhaustion of waiting for improvement. Perhaps your pain is quieter, but no less real. Loneliness, disappointment, a dream that never came true, a relationship that broke your heart, a door that closed without explanation, a sense that life did not turn out the way you hoped it would. Sometimes the deepest pain is not dramatic or visible. It is the quiet grief of feeling unseen, unheard, or forgotten. And then there are those moments when fear takes over. Fear of the future, fear of failure, fear of losing what little stability you have left. You may feel like you are carrying everything alone, even when surrounded by people. You may wonder if anyone truly understands what you are going through, or if God sees how hard you are trying just to keep going. If any of this resonates with you, I want you to know something very important. You are not weak for feeling this way. You are human, and your pain does not disqualify you from miracles. It qualifies you for compassion. St. Anthony understands this kind of suffering. He is not distant or indifferent. He is known as the friend of those in need, the one who listens when words fail, the intercessor who steps in when situations become urgent and overwhelming. He understands what it means to cry out from the depths of the heart, because he has spent generations walking with people through their darkest hours. Right now, I invite you to do something simple but powerful. In the silence of your heart, name the thing that hurts the most. You don't need to say it out loud, just acknowledge it. Let it rise to the surface instead of pushing it away. It may feel uncomfortable, but this honesty is the beginning of healing. Now, imagine placing that burden gently into the hands of St. Anthony, not with force, not with desperation, but with trust. Imagine saying, "I cannot carry this alone anymore." Imagine allowing yourself to be supported, even if just for this moment. You do not have to explain everything perfectly. St. Anthony already understands the details you don't know how to express. He understands the tears you hold back, the prayers you repeat over and over, and the moments when your faith feels fragile. He does not judge your doubts or measure the strength of your belief. He responds to sincerity. This is a sacred exchange. You offer your pain, and in return, you receive presence. You receive compassion. You receive the reassurance that you are not facing this alone. Sometimes the first miracle is not the answer we want, but the peace that tells us we are being held. If you feel tired right now, let yourself rest here. If you feel anxious, breathe slowly and allow your heart to soften. If you feel overwhelmed, remember that you are allowed to ask for help. Heaven is not offended by your need, it responds to it. St. Anthony has been a refuge for countless people who felt exactly as you do now. People who reached the end of their strength. People who felt lost, desperate, or afraid. And again, he has carried their prayers to God with tenderness and urgency. You are not asking for too much. You are not late. You are not forgotten. This moment of prayer exists because your life matters. Your struggle matters. And your hope, no matter how small, matters. As we continue this prayer, hold on to this truth. Acknowledging your pain is not a sign of defeat. It is an act of courage. It is the first step toward transformation. And with St. Anthony walking beside you, every burden you place into his care becomes lighter. Every tear becomes a prayer, and every moment of weakness becomes an opening for grace. Stay here. You are safe, and you are heard. Now that you have allowed yourself to acknowledge what hurts, now that you have gently placed your burden into hands greater than your own, something begins to shift inside you. Pain, when it is no longer hidden, no longer carried in silence, loses part of its power. It does not disappear instantly, but it becomes lighter because it is no longer carried alone. This is where faith begins to rise, not as an abstract idea, but as a quiet confidence that someone is truly listening. When we dare to open our hearts, heaven responds not with distance, but with closeness. And in this sacred space, after naming your pain, we now turn our eyes toward the one who has carried the prayers of the desperate for centuries. We turn toward St. Anthony, not only to ask, but to trust, not only to hope, but to believe that miracles are not stories of the past, they are living possibilities. Before we ask for anything more, we take a moment to remember who St. Anthony is, why his name has become a refuge for so many, and why his intercession remains powerful today. St. Anthony of Padua is not remembered simply because of miracles, but because of love, a love so deep, so faithful, and so attentive to human suffering that it continues to flow long after his earthly life ended. When people call upon St. Anthony, they are not reaching for a distant saint carved in stone. They are reaching for a compassionate presence that understands urgency, desperation, and hope intertwined. He is known across generations as the saint of lost things, but those who truly know his story understand that what he helps us recover is far greater than objects. He helps restore hope when it feels lost. He helps guide hearts when direction is unclear. He helps open paths when every door seems closed. And most of all, he helps people believe again when faith feels fragile. St. Anthony lived a life completely surrendered to God. His words carried truth, his actions reflected mercy, and his heart remained deeply attentive to the cries of the poor, the sick, and the forgotten. He did not turn away from suffering, he stepped into it. That is why his intercession carries such strength. He does not look at human pain from afar, he stands within it, lifting it toward heaven. When you call upon St. Anthony, you are calling upon someone who understands urgency. He understands what it means to need help now, not someday. He understands the fear of waiting, the exhaustion of uncertainty, and the quiet despair that grows when answers do not come quickly. That is why so many people turn to him in moments when time feels heavy and hope feels thin. Right now, as you continue this prayer, allow yourself to trust his presence, not as a last resort, but as a faithful companion. Imagine St. Anthony standing beside you, listening attentively, holding your intentions with care. Imagine him taking your prayer and carrying it directly before God with confidence and tenderness. Trust does not mean you have no doubts. Trust means you choose to place your heart into loving hands, even when you cannot see the outcome. St. Anthony invites this kind of trust, not blind, not forced, but rooted in love and experience. Millions before you have whispered his name in moments of desperation, and they were not ignored. Faith grows when we remember that miracles are not rewards for perfection. They are gifts of grace. St. Anthony does not intercede only for the strong or the faithful. He intercedes for the tired, the confused, the broken, and the afraid. He intercedes for those who feel unworthy and for those who feel forgotten. As you honor St. Anthony now, let gratitude begin to take shape in your heart, not because everything is resolved, but because you are no longer alone. Gratitude opens the door for trust, and trust prepares the ground for miracles. When you thank him in advance, you are declaring that you believe heaven is already at work. St. Anthony's power does not come from himself, but from his closeness to God. His intercession is strong because it is humble. He does not seek glory, he seeks to bring souls closer to divine mercy. That is why his help feels gentle, yet transformative, quiet, yet profound. If you are struggling to believe right now, let St. Anthony believe for you. Let his faith carry your weakness. Let his confidence stand where yours feels unsteady. There is no shame in leaning on the faith of the saints when your own feels fragile. This moment is about building a foundation. Before asking for the miracle itself, we root ourselves in trust. We remember that God is good, that heaven is attentive, and that St. Anthony walks with us as an advocate, a friend, and a guide. You are not speaking into emptiness. Your prayer is not drifting unnoticed. It is being gathered, lifted, and presented with care. St. Anthony's intercession is not rushed, but it is intentional. He knows what is needed, when it is needed, and how it will serve your soul. Hold on to this truth as we continue. When you honor St. Anthony, you are aligning yourself with a long history of hope, a history of prayers answered in unexpected ways, a history of lives transformed not only by miracles received, but by faith renewed. Let this trust settle deeply within you. Let it calm your thoughts. Let it steady your heart. Because when trust is established, the path is prepared, and miracles, in God's perfect timing, begin to unfold. Dear friend, as trust begins to settle in your heart, something quietly changes within you. The fear that once dominated your thoughts no longer speaks as loudly. The doubt that once questioned whether this prayer would matter starts to loosen its grip. You may not see the answer yet, but deep inside, a gentle certainty begins to form. This moment is meaningful. Faith is never meant to remain still. It is not only something we feel, it is something we live, something we step into. And now that you have honored St. Anthony and allowed trust to take root, the next step unfolds naturally. This is the moment where faith moves from the heart into action. This is where we respond to the invitation heaven places before us. This is where we do something simple, yet profoundly powerful. We choose to act in faith. There is a truth that echoes through every testimony, every answered prayer, every miracle remembered across generations. Faith requires movement, not dramatic gestures or perfect words, but a willing heart that chooses to respond. Do it and receive is not a command meant to pressure you. It is an invitation to participate in what God is already doing. So often, when we pray for a miracle, we wait. We wait for a sign, for clarity, for certainty. And while waiting has its place, faith asks us for something more intimate. Faith asks us to take one small step forward, even when the path ahead is not fully visible. That step may feel quiet, even fragile, but heaven honors it. Right now, that step begins within you. It begins with intention. I invite you to consciously decide, in this moment, that you are choosing faith over fear. You may still feel afraid, and that is okay. Faith does not eliminate fear, it chooses to move despite it. Whisper within your heart, I choose to trust, I choose to believe, I choose to place this situation into God's hands. This act of faith is deeply personal. It may look different for everyone. For some, it is the decision to pray sincerely after a long time of silence. For others, it is the courage to ask for help, to forgive, to let go of resentment, or to stop carrying a burden alone. Sometimes, the most powerful act of faith is simply staying present instead of giving up. St. Anthony understands these small acts. He understands that faith is often expressed not in grand declarations, but in quiet persistence. When you choose to remain here, listening, praying, opening your heart, you are already acting in faith. You are already responding to grace. Do it and receive also means allowing yourself to receive what God offers, even when it does not look exactly as you imagined. Receiving may come as peace before the solution arrives. It may come as strength to endure while waiting. It may come as clarity, direction, or a sense of reassurance that calms your soul. None of these are small miracles. I invite you now to release control. This may be one of the hardest acts of faith, especially if you are used to managing everything on your own. Letting go does not mean you stop caring. It means you trust that God cares more deeply than you ever could. Say within your heart, I release this situation, I release the outcome, I trust your timing. As you do this, imagine St. Anthony standing beside you, encouraging this step. He is not urging you to rush or force anything. He is gently guiding you to open your hands. Closed hands cannot receive. Open hands, even trembling ones, can. Faith also involves expectation, not demanding, but hopeful expectation. It is allowing yourself to believe that good is possible again, that change is possible, that restoration is possible. Even if you have been disappointed before, even if prayers in the past felt unanswered, this moment is new. God's mercy is renewed each day. When you act in faith, you align yourself with divine movement. You place yourself in a posture where grace can reach you. St. Anthony intercedes powerfully in these moments, carrying your willingness before God. He presents not only your request, but your trust, your courage, your openness. This is why so many miracles begin quietly. They begin with a decision made in the heart, a decision to keep believing, to keep praying, to keep showing up. The world may not notice this moment, but heaven does. If you are listening to this prayer and feel prompted to participate in a simple action, whether it is whispering a prayer, writing a comment, lighting a candle, or sharing this prayer with someone else, do not dismiss that urge. Often, these small gestures are outward expressions of an inward act of faith. They are signs that your heart is responding. Remember, miracles are not transactions. They are encounters. They unfold within relationship, within trust, within surrender. Do it and receive means stepping into that relationship with openness and humility. St. Anthony does not ask for perfection. He responds to sincerity. He responds to hearts that dare to believe again, even after disappointment. He responds to those who take one step forward instead of remaining frozen by fear. Right now, you are doing it by staying here, by listening, by praying, by choosing faith. Even if your voice trembles, this moment matters more than you realize. Allow yourself to receive peace, receive reassurance, receive the quiet strength that comes from knowing you are not alone. The miracle you seek may already be unfolding in ways you cannot yet see. Hold on to this truth as we continue. Every act of faith, no matter how small, is seen, honored, and multiplied by God. And with St. Anthony interceding for you, no sincere act of faith is ever wasted. Stay open, stay present. You are walking the path of grace now, and heaven is responding. As you take this step of faith, something sacred unfolds. Faith, once awakened, begins to speak not only through intention, but through surrender. You have chosen to trust. You have chosen to open your hands. Now comes the moment where your heart lifts its voice fully toward heaven. This is the turning point of the prayer, the place where faith becomes a cry, where hope becomes a plea, and where love becomes bold enough to ask for what feels impossible. This is not the time to hold back. This is the moment to speak clearly, honestly, and urgently. Now, with St. Anthony beside you and trust alive within you, we enter the heart of this prayer. We raise our voices together for the miracle that cannot wait. St. Anthony, in this sacred moment, we come before you with hearts fully open and spirits longing for divine intervention. We are no longer hiding our need. We are no longer whispering our fears in silence. We bring them into the light, trusting that heaven responds when faith speaks boldly. Right now, I invite you to focus on the miracle you are asking for, not vaguely, not with hesitation, but with clarity and sincerity. Whether it is healing, financial relief, reconciliation, protection, direction, or peace, name it in your heart. God already knows, but there is power in offering it consciously. intentionally and with trust. St. Anthony, intercessor of urgent causes, we ask you to carry this request before the throne of God. We ask you to present it with the tenderness of one who understands human suffering and the confidence of one who stands close to divine mercy. We ask not because we believe we deserve miracles, but because we believe in God's goodness and compassion. This plea comes from a place of humility. We acknowledge that we do not control outcomes, timing, or paths. Yet we also believe that nothing is impossible for God. We believe that doors can open suddenly. We believe that chains can break. We believe that situations long considered hopeless can be transformed in an instant by divine grace. St. Anthony, look upon this heart that pleads before you. See the exhaustion, the fear, the waiting, and the silent tears. See the courage it takes to hope again after disappointment. See the faith that remains, even if it feels fragile. Take all of this and lift it to God as an offering of trust. We ask for an urgent miracle, not out of impatience, but out of need. Some burdens cannot wait. Some situations require immediate grace. Some hearts are at the edge of despair and need a sign of hope now. St. Anthony, you who have responded countless times to urgent cries, hear this plea and intercede swiftly. Yet even as we ask boldly, we surrender completely. We say with sincerity, let this miracle unfold according to God's perfect will. Let it bring not only relief, but transformation, not only solution, but peace, not only answers, but deeper faith. If the miracle comes as healing, let it restore body, mind, and spirit. If it comes as provision, let it arrive with stability and dignity. If it comes as reconciliation, let it be rooted in truth and love. If it comes as clarity, let it guide each step forward. Whatever form it takes, let it draw us closer to God. St. Anthony, strengthen us in this moment of asking. Remove fear from our hearts. Silence the voices of doubt that tell us this prayer is too much, too late, or too unlikely. Replace those voices with trust, confidence, and peace. We believe that heaven hears us. We believe that our plea is not lost. We believe that divine providence is already at work, weaving together paths we cannot yet see. Even now, as we pray, circumstances may already be shifting in ways hidden from us. Teach us to wait with faith if waiting is required. Teach us to recognize the miracle when it arrives, even if it looks different than expected. Teach us gratitude, not only after the miracle, but during the journey toward it, St. Anthony. Let this prayer reach God as a cry filled with hope rather than fear. Let it rise as an act of trust rather than desperation. Let it be rooted in love, the love of a child who knows they can turn to heaven without hesitation. We ask you to surround this situation with divine protection. Guard it from harm, confusion, and discouragement. Cover it with light. Align it with God's plan. Remove every obstacle that stands in the way of grace. And as we ask for this miracle, we also ask for the strength to remain faithful regardless of the outcome. We place our confidence not only in what we hope to receive, but in the God who loves us beyond measure. We trust that nothing offered in faith is ever wasted. St. Anthony, faithful servant of God, let your intercession bring peace to this restless heart. Let hope rise where fear once lived. Let assurance replace uncertainty. Let this moment of prayer become a turning point, a moment remembered as the beginning of renewal. We believe that what feels impossible to us is possible with God. We believe that this prayer matters. We believe that you are listening, and with that belief, we place everything into your care. Stay with us as this miracle unfolds. Guide us gently, strengthen us daily, and help us remain anchored in faith as we await the grace that heaven will release at the perfect moment. Dear friend, after lifting your plea toward the heaven, after daring to ask boldly for the miracle your heart longs for, something gentle begins to take place. The intensity of the request slowly gives way to a quiet stillness, not because the need has vanished, but because your soul has done what it needed to do. You have spoken, you have trusted, you have surrendered. Now comes the sacred space that follows every true prayer, the moment of peaceful expectation. This is where fear loosens its grip, where anxiety no longer dominates the heart, and where hope is no longer something you chase, but something you rest within. This is the moment when faith whispers, God is already at work. As we enter this final part of the prayer, we do not rush away. We remain here, anchored in trust, allowing hope to take root deeply and permanently. This is where we affirm that the miracle is not only possible, it is already being prepared. St. Anthony, in this moment of quiet surrender, we remain before you with hearts that are no longer trembling with fear, but resting in hope. We have spoken our need. We have asked for the miracle that cannot wait. And now, we choose to trust, not passively, but with living faith that continues to breathe even in silence. There is a profound grace in learning how to wait with hope. Waiting does not mean doubt. Waiting does not mean abandonment. Waiting, when held with faith, becomes a sacred space where God continues to work beyond what our eyes can see. St. Anthony, teach us how to remain faithful in this space. Teach us how to trust when answers are not immediate, and how to remain peaceful when outcomes are not yet clear. We acknowledge that miracles do not always arrive with noise or spectacle. Sometimes they begin quietly, like a seed placed gently into the soil of the heart. At first, nothing seems to change, but beneath the surface, life is stirring, roots are growing, strength is forming. And in time, what was hidden begins to rise. St. Anthony, help us to recognize this hidden work of grace. Help us to see signs of hope where we once saw only obstacles. Help us to notice moments of peace, unexpected encouragement, new clarity, or renewed strength as signs that heaven has not remained silent. We place our trust in the timing of God, even when that timing challenges our patience. We confess that waiting can be difficult. It can feel uncomfortable and uncertain. Yet we choose to believe that divine timing is never late and never careless. It is guided by love that sees the full picture, not just the moment we are living now. In this time of waiting, we ask for the grace to remain steady, guard our hearts from discouragement, protect our minds from negative thoughts that tell us nothing is happening. Remind us gently, again and again, that God is faithful, that St. Anthony continues to intercede, and that no prayer offered with sincerity is ever forgotten. St. Anthony, surround us with peace that does not depend on circumstances. Let this peace calm our thoughts when fear tries to return. Let it anchor us when uncertainty tries to shake us. Let it remind us that our lives are held by hands far greater than our own. As we wait, we choose gratitude. We thank God not only for the miracle we hope to receive, but for the strength we already feel growing within us. We thank Him for every small sign of progress, every moment of comfort, every reminder that we are not alone. Gratitude transforms waiting into worship and expectation into confidence. St. Anthony, help us to remain attentive to the ways grace may arrive. Sometimes miracles come through unexpected conversations. Sometimes they come through new opportunities, changes in perspective, or doors opening quietly. Give us the wisdom to recognize these moments and the courage to step forward when they appear. We also ask for the humility to accept the miracle in whatever form God chooses to give it. We trust that His answer will serve not only our immediate need, but the deeper growth of our soul. If the miracle comes differently than expected, give us the faith to receive it with openness rather than disappointment. In this time of hope, we reaffirm our trust in divine providence. We believe that God is arranging details we cannot yet understand. We believe that paths are being aligned, hearts are being softened, and circumstances are being reshaped according to a plan rooted in love. St. Anthony, remain close to us as we continue our daily lives. Walk with us through ordinary moments, through challenges and responsibilities, through joys and uncertainties. Remind us through your gentle presence that we are never walking alone. We ask that this hope we feel now does not fade once the prayer ends. Let it remain with us throughout our days and nights. Let it influence our decisions, our words, and our relationships. Let it shape the way we respond to difficulties and the way we treat others. May this hope become a testimony, not only of a miracle received, but of a heart transformed, a heart that trusts more deeply, a heart that fears less, a heart that remains open to grace even in moments of uncertainty. St. Anthony, we also lift up others who are waiting for miracles, those who feel forgotten, those who are exhausted by long struggles, those whose faith feels weak. May the hope we cultivate now extend beyond ourselves and reach those who need encouragement. Make us instruments of comfort, compassion, and quiet faith. As we wait, we commit ourselves to living with integrity and love. We choose to act with patience, kindness, and trust, even when answers seem delayed. We choose to remain faithful to prayer, confident that heaven continues to listen. We release the urge to control outcomes. We release the anxiety of when and how. We place everything into God's hands, knowing that His will is guided by wisdom and mercy. St. Anthony, help us to surrender again and again whenever fear tries to return. Let this season of waiting become a season of growth. Let it deepen our faith, strengthen our character, and refine our trust. Let it prepare us to receive the miracle not only with joy, but with gratitude and humility. We declare with confidence that what we have placed before heaven will bear fruit. We declare that hope is alive. We declare that divine mercy surrounds us, and we declare that the miracle we seek, whether already unfolding or still to come, is held securely within God's loving plan. St. Anthony, we thank you for your constant intercession. We thank you for walking beside us, for lifting our prayers, and for reminding us that even in waiting, grace is active. Continue to guide us, protect us, and strengthen us as we move forward. We rest now in peace, not because everything is resolved, but because trust has taken root. We move forward with hope, not fragile hope, but confident hope grounded in faith. And as we carry this hope with us, we remain certain of one truth. Heaven has heard this prayer, and divine love is already at work. Amen. As we come to the end of this prayer, take a deep breath and allow your heart to rest. You have done something meaningful today. You have chosen faith over fear. You have chosen hope instead of surrendering to despair. And even if nothing around you seems different yet, something within you has already shifted. Prayer is never wasted. Not a single word spoken in faith is lost. Every tear offered in trust is seen. Every silent plea carried in the heart is heard. And now, as this prayer gently comes to a close, you are not walking away empty. You are carrying hope with you. St. Anthony remains with you beyond this moment. His intercession does not end when the prayer ends. Heaven does not stop listening when the words fall silent. What has been entrusted today continues to be held, protected, and guided by divine love. If you are still waiting for your miracle, remember this: waiting does not mean abandonment. It means preparation. It means that something is unfolding in ways you cannot yet see. Trust that God is working even in the quiet, even in the unseen, even in the moments when doubt tries to return. Take this prayer with you into your daily life. Let it influence how you speak, how you respond to challenges, how you treat yourself and others. Let it remind you that you are not alone and that your situation is not hopeless. If this prayer touched your heart, I gently invite you to take a small step of faith right now. You may choose to write a short prayer or intention in the comments, not as a requirement, but as an act of trust. You may choose to share this prayer with someone who needs hope today. Or you may simply pause for a moment and whisper, "Thank you," in your heart. These small actions matter. They are expressions of faith. They are ways of saying, "I believe something good is possible." And often, miracles begin with that simple decision. Thank you for praying here. Thank you for staying present. Thank you for allowing this moment of faith into your life. Your openness, your trust, and your willingness to hope again are powerful, and they matter more than you realize. May St. Anthony continue to walk beside you in the days ahead. May he intercede for your urgent needs, your hidden struggles, and your deepest hopes. May he remind you, again and again, that God's mercy is close and his love is unwavering. I pray that peace settles gently in your heart tonight. I pray that fear loosens its grip and hope grows stronger with each passing day. I pray that clarity replaces confusion, strength replaces exhaustion, and trust replaces worry. May the miracle you are waiting for arrive at the perfect time, in the perfect way, bringing not only resolution, but renewal. And may you recognize it, not only as an answer to prayer, but as a sign of divine love watching over you. Wherever you are, whatever you are facing, may you feel held, guided, and protected. May your faith remain steady. May your heart remain open. And may grace meet you exactly where you are. Thank you for being here. Thank you for praying. And may blessings surround you now and always. Amen.